Stop me if you've heard this one before. Nobody actually likes turn-based combat, people just put up with it for the story. And every time I hear that, I feel like I'm being gaslit by the entire internet. Because anybody who's played a good JRPG knows that's complete nonsense. To be clear, you don't have to like turn-based battle systems, but acting like nobody enjoys them, that's just wrong. And today I'm gonna prove it, because we're talking about a JRPG where the combat isn't just good, it's my favorite part of the game. Today, we're looking at Golden Sun. This game comes to us courtesy of Camelot, a studio that went from making JRPGs for Sega to a frankly absurd number of Mario sports games. I'm not super familiar with their catalog, this was actually my first Camelot game, but they got a reputation for doing things a little differently, both in terms of presentation and gameplay. But before we get into that, let's talk about the story. Golden Sun follows Isaac, a kid from the village of Vale, where everyone's an adept, which basically means they can use magic called synergy, and their job is to guard the mysterious Mount Aleph. One day, the village gets absolutely wrecked by natural disasters, killing Isaac's dad and Felix, the older brother of his friend Jenna. Yeah, talk about starting with a bang. Fast forward a few years. Isaac, Jenna, and their best friend Garrett are training under a scholar named Kraden who wants to study Mount Aleph. They go there, do some exploring, and suddenly a big floating eyeball shows up. Now, for me, Eldritch Abominations showing up means it's my time to get out of Dodge, but Kraden's a stubborn old bastard and drags the kids to do some more manual labor for him. Are we sure this guy ain't the villain? Anyway, deep inside the mountain, they discover it's actually one of the 4 seals holding back the ancient and extremely dangerous power of alchemy. Oh, and those disasters from earlier? Caused by 2 evil adepts named Saturos and Minardi, who look like rejected Kamen Rider antagonists. Also, Felix is alive, and working with them. They take Jenna and Kraden hostage, break the seal, and leave. So, yeah, I mean, that really got out of hand fast, huh? Anyway, the kids explain the situation to the village elder, who basically responds by saying, "I don't know, man, you kids figure it out." And now Isaac and Garrett must go on an adventure to save their friends and prevent the world from being destroyed by alchemy. With the premise out of the way, we can talk about the real star of the show, the gameplay. Golden Sun features a pretty huge overworld map where you explore towns and dungeons. Not much to say, it's a solid overworld. I do wish there was fast travel, but hey, you can't win them all. Towns are nice too. You can explore, find hidden items, and each one has its own little story and cast of characters. But the real highlight here is the dungeons. Golden Sun has some genuinely top-tier dungeon design, with special mention going to the puzzles. The game usually introduces a mechanic in a simple room, then gradually ramps up the complexity as you go along. They're challenging, but never to the point where you just give up and look up a guide. A lot of games treat puzzles like filler, Golden Sun doesn't. They make up a huge chunk of dungeon time, and I enjoy most of them. Not counting the damn minecarts. The game also has the courtesy to tone down or even remove random encounters during puzzle sections, which is great because nothing kills your concentration faster than getting jumped mid-logic puzzle. Exploration is also fantastic. You constantly spot treasure chests that are just out of reach, like the game's nudging you going, "Come on, you sweaty nerd, you know you want it." And if you take your time to experiment with synergy and look for hidden paths, you'll usually be rewarded with some good items. Or ambushed by a mimic, same difference. Now, speaking of items, here's one of my few gameplay complaints: inventory management. Each character has limited space, which is fine, but key items get lumped in with everything else and you can't drop or sell them, so I ended up spending more time than I'd like just organizing people's inventories. It would have been nice if you could stash items somewhere, you know, like go to an inn, drop an item there that you can access in all the other inns. Simple solution. If there is such a mechanic, I really didn't find it. That said, the game does have some great quality of life features. It automatically asks you if you want to sell old gear when you buy upgrades, great idea, and you can warp to the start of dungeons at any time, which saves a ton on backtracking. Thank you. Continuing with that, let's talk about the party. Isaac and Garrett are your starting characters, but the team eventually expands to include Ivan and Mia. Ivan's the black mage while Mia's the white mage, at least initially. Each character is an adept tied to a specific element. Isaac is earth, Garrett is fire, Ivan is wind, and Mia is water. On the surface, combat is your standard turn-based setup. Attacks, spells, picking targets, the usual stuff. But Golden Sun builds on that with 2 major systems, Djinn and classes. And these are where things start to get really interesting. Genie are these little elemental creatures that you collect throughout the game, basically magical Pokemon. Sometimes you just find them and they join you, other times you gotta fight them first. Once acquired, you can equip them to boost stats and gain special moves, or you can set them to standby to fuel powerful summons. The more Genie on standby, the stronger the summon. So right away you've got some meaningful choices. Do you power up your characters or cash in for big damage? You might think, well, I'll just spam summons and kill everything. And okay, but anything that can't instantly be killed by summons is strong enough that you'll really wish you had the Djinn abilities. They're basically more powerful versions of your spells, drastically reducing damage, unleashing powerful attacks, or even resurrecting dead party members like a cutesy version of Reanimator. What I'm saying is, you'll want to experiment, because no setup is ideal for every situation. And then there's the class system. Each character has a base element, but you can mix and match Genie from different elements to completely change their class. Garrett can be a slow-moving guard or a nimble ninja. Mia can be a healing priest or an offensive pilgrim. To be clear, this isn't just a change of attributes, classes have unique skills associated with them. No character can be every class, but you've got a ton of freedom to experiment. And that's what makes the combat so engaging. You're constantly tweaking builds, trying new setups, and adapting to different fights. It's an insanely flexible system and easily the best part of this thing. And the game expects you to think carefully about what you're gonna do, because despite the shonen anime look, Golden Sun ain't a cakewalk. This game will absolutely kick your teeth in if you're not prepared, especially bosses. But that's a good thing, right? I mean, I would get some serious blue balls if they hyped up a boss battle against a big evil dragon and I took the poor bastard down in 2 turns. Besides, it pushes you to actually use the systems instead of just mashing the attack button. And yeah, there's a bit of grinding involved if you want smoother progress. Not the worst I've seen, I mean this ain't 7th Saga on the SNES, but maybe queue up a podcast or something. Still, getting stronger feels great. Going from struggling in fights to absolutely steamrolling enemies is incredibly satisfying, and some of the gear is just ridiculous in the best way. Like swords that summon the literal Grim Reaper to slash your enemies when you land a crit, it looks metal as hell. And speaking of looks, Golden Sun is really impressive for a GBA title. The environments are colorful and varied. Forests, deserts, snowy regions, it's all familiar but well executed. Character designs are simple but expressive. A lot of personality comes through in animation or just the stances, like how Garrett's default stance has him confidently standing with his hands on his hips as if to say, yeah, I'm the one who farted. Enemies and bosses also strike a great balance, intimidating but not out of place. And the summons go into full anime spectacle. The music is another highlight. Battle themes, town themes, dungeon themes, they all hit. Which is great, because a JRPG with bad music is borderline unplayable. Oh, and fun fact, the composer, Motoi Sakuraba, also worked on the Soul series. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could say Golden Sun really is the Dark Souls of... Yeah, no, I'm not finishing that joke. Overall, Camelot really delivered a specific feeling. Decidedly Western fantasy tropes with a distinct Japanese feel to it. But it's not all roses, because for as much as I love the gameplay, the story isn't that great. First up, what's the matter with the dialogue? Were the writers getting paid by the word? In most cutscenes, the same basic information gets repeated like 5 or 6 times in different ways. It's like reading a Brian Michael Bendis comic. Maybe this was done because they wanted to make sure younger audiences would follow the story, but 1, kids are smarter than that, and 2, the story really isn't that complicated. To expand on that, like I said earlier, the opening is great. There's drama, stakes, emotional weight, it really pulls you in. I was pleasantly surprised by how well the game handles the deaths of Isaac's father and Felix. They don't gloss over it, but it's also not melodramatic. But once the journey actually begins, the plot loses momentum. The party keeps getting pulled into side stories that really don't connect to the main conflict, turning the narrative into an and then plot. You know, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, instead of events tying naturally into the main story. And that's a problem because the opening sets up a really urgent situation. We're told that if Saturos and Minority unleash alchemy, all hell's gonna break loose, but the gang stops by to help every Tom, Dick, and Harry they come across. The characters themselves even sometimes say, like, shouldn't we be stopping Armageddon or something? And it's frustrating because it wouldn't have taken that much effort to fix. You don't have to rewrite the entire game, just have the villains show up more. Tie these events together, build those relationships. There are interesting ideas here that just don't get the development they deserve. Felix, for example, has a direct connection to the party, but the game barely explores it. There's also Alex, another antagonist who's revealed to have been a student of Mia's, which could have added some great personal stakes, but again, it doesn't really go anywhere. Even Ivan gets hints that there's something special about him, and if you thought they were going to do something with that, you're not great with pattern recognition. And a big part of that problem comes from Golden Sun's most controversial narrative choice. You see, this isn't a complete story. It has a sequel, The Lost Age, and that's not a new adventure, it's literally the second half of this one. And I kinda hate that. I think a game should have a satisfying beginning, middle, and end, even if it's part of a bigger narrative. Take the Metal Gear Solid games, some of the most complicated narratives you're ever gonna see in gaming, but each game tells a fulfilling story. Well, except, you know. But anyway, Golden Sun's plot just feels incomplete. The quote-unquote ending is basically the game just going, alright, now go buy the sequel. Now, to be fair, I haven't actually played The Lost Age yet. I do plan to, and I'll review it for you guys. But even if it's amazing, I doubt it'll retroactively fix this story for me. That said, it's not all bad. The individual stories and towns are fun, even if they're disconnected. There are cool character moments, and the presentation does a lot with a little. The characters are all likable, if a bit simple. Isaac's a silent protagonist, so, you know, not much to say there.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Garrett's the lovable meathead, Ivan's the shy, smart guy, and Mia's the kind healer. They work, but they don't get much development, since this is only half a story. And that's Golden Sun, a game where I'm lukewarm on the story, but I absolutely love the gameplay, which is funny because apparently nobody likes turn-based combat, right? Overall, I can absolutely see why Golden Sun became such a nostalgic favorite. Hell, I played it for the first time a few months ago, and I already love it. It's not perfect, the story's lacking, inventory can be annoying, but the combat, the exploration, the dungeon design, the aesthetics, that stuff is fantastic. This is one of the best examples of why turn-based combat can be so much fun when it's done right. If you've never played JRPGs before and are looking for an introduction, man, Golden Sun's the game for you. It feels warm and familiar, but also experimental and daring. One of the strongest and most interesting games on the Game Boy Advance. But that's just my take. What about you? Did you play Golden Sun? Did you mess around with the genie system? Or did you ignore it and suffer the consequences? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. All that good stuff. And I'll see you next time.